So.
Got it.
Okay. I'm taking over for Ann, who is under the weather.
Yeah, I am.
Hi, Ann.
And how are you this morning? Hope you're feeling better.
So at exactly 9 o'clock, we'll start the meeting. And the first order of business is approval of the minutes.
No,
Did you make those couple of little,
I wanted to make sure there weren't any other changes before I.
okay. Do we have any discussion of amendments? Any
Okay,
corrections? There were two little ones. One, I was here in spirit only, not in Zoom. It shows me in Zoom. And then Callie was in Zoom as well.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, other than that,
Was that the meeting?
Hmm?
Was I at that meeting?
Rob Hellstrom,
Okay,
according to the minutes you were.
okay, thought so, I still make sure. Yeah, don't make me changes again.
Someone's taking notes.
Oh, okay, so someone wanna move to approve?
Move to approve.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor? Okay,
Oh, staying, I wasn't.
all right, minutes approved. Okay, audience of citizens. Let's see.
Would that be Tom?
Oh, Tom, are you in? Is Tom in?
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, okay, yep, good, okay. Okay, so I guess Tom is it. Updates from Callie, I don't think Callie's not on board. No. No. Okay. All right, no updates. Unless you know something, Ann, have you talked to her? Can you hear Ann Dunnick?
She's muted.
Have you talked to Callie? You gotta unmute.
Trying to figure out that on you.
There you go.
How's that?
Good. Have you talked to Callie in the
Kelly sent me an email stating that they were close to having the agreement signed with the state TPL and IMBA. And that's all. Should be done by Christmas. Should be done by tomorrow.
Well, that would be nice. That would be a nice Christmas present.
That's all I know.
Okay. So if she comes in, then I guess she could talk further. Old business. PZC open space set asides. Anybody have anything?
I can talk to that if you guys would like. So I think that there was some conversation, I think it was mainly around, there's a zoning regulation change that we're working on for planned neighborhood housing, and it has some verbiage in it about a 15% set aside for open space. So I give you kind of like the real quick rundown on this. So there's been requests of zoning from several different groups on affordability projects in town, just being able to make things more affordable. Some of it, actually, I think it originated from Kona about retirement types of facilities and that sort of building project where you would have denser housing units on smaller pieces of property. Where we kind of landed in working with the subcommittee and trying to move this stuff forward and changing some verbiage is really in order for it to be more productive and, more enticing to someone to actually build a project like this would be to open it up to anyone. So it's not just over a certain age. It would be young, old, whoever, which would allow a more affordable type of project, to be built. So the existing regulations, as they stand now, are for that retirement type of project. And we carried over probably 80% of the language to this new revision, which is still being considered. We're still going through it. And basically, we changed it from retirement community housing to planned neighborhood housing to open it up to more opportunities for people for something that's more affordable. The other changes that were made to the regulations in the proposal in the draft are a density incentive. So you can go from 8 units on a 4-acre minimum to 12 units if you set aside 20% as kind of an affordable housing or affordable units. And all that means is you take the mean income of, I don't know if it's Columbia specifically or the region, but it's this region. And then there's a percentage that someone has to make below that median income. So it's very highly regulated by the state. There's all kinds of things that the developer or that the manager of the property has to submit to the town to prove that those people are taking advantage of it. And it would be 20% would be set aside for that for higher density. And that's really what we're trying to do is there's very little that we can control as far as housing costs from the town zoning level. Most of it's state, federal building codes and things like that, and market driven for the cost of property. So we're trying to take that small piece that we can control and make things a little bit more affordable. So some of the carryover, a lot of it is carryover language that we still need to go through. And I think this may have been where the questions were, but in the original regulation, there's a 15% set aside for open space with a project like this, which is something that we have to look at and consider. And because really every dollar counts with something like this, because there's so little that we can control. We need to take everything into consideration as far as how that would affect cost and then any other verbiage within the regulations. But that's kind of where we are now. We're still in the middle of reviewing it and getting input, and nothing, a final draft has not been completed, so we're still a little ways away, but
What is Kona?
the Council on Aging. So, yep.
Is there some part of the talk of eliminating open space as part of the requirement?
Part of it, yes. There is some discussion of that, because if we take 15%, that could possibly affect the affordability of the project. So with something like this, because it's not a traditional subdivision, which is where a lot of the open spaces come in as far as the discussion. It's more of a landscaping concern for some members to make sure that if you have a higher density project, that there's buffer zones and things like that, which I think that the open space piece has kind of been mixed in with that discussion to say, well, if there's open space used as a buffer zone, but it's also like a landscaping concern, and I'm sure people have a landscaping plan and that sort of stuff. So we're trying to figure out what's the most appropriate cost effective.
That's a tough balance, because you still have to make it desirable, so.
Yeah.
I've spent quite a bit of time down in Florida at this point, visiting my son, and, the houses they're building down there are not, they're selling, people are moving there, but it's become tract housing.
Yeah.
Very expensive tract housing.
Mhm.
They're spending lots of money, but it's ugly,
Yeah,
basically.
right.
So hopefully they'll take that into consideration. So open space isn't always just preserving land. Some of it is making the area where these people living desirable.
Yeah, like a playground or an open green.
There's things like that, I don't know, it's,
Yeah, I think some of it is interpretation, and I'm with you with that. Like, if we were to do something within the regulatory infrastructure for this, that's what I would support. But what I don't want to do is have it, because there's less and less desirable land, buildable land in Columbia. It's like, we're not going to be dealing with something where it's going to be this massive, amount of units being built on a small piece of property. The land just can't handle it. So every acre counts. What I'm trying to avoid from my perspective on the subcommittee is interests coming and saying, well, we need this particular piece set aside for open space, regardless of, you know, if it negatively affects the applicant and the cost of the project, whereas because it's higher density, what you said is really my concern too. It's like, okay, well, where are the borders, where are the buffer zones? Is there, you know, what is the applicant decided to do as far as recreational area? And what is what's the balance between the maximum number of units and affordability versus those types of considerations? So, and I think sometimes the verbiage gets confused, you know, what's open space versus what's a landscaping plan, because that's also in there. It's a little muddled. We need to clean it up, I think.
The lots that they would be thinking about here wouldn't be like 100-acre lots. I mean, you're talking about a high density, small parcel, relatively small parcel.
Generally, there's no lot maximum, there's a lot minimum,
Mhm.
4 acres, but the reality too is, you know, what's left. If we want to accomplish something that's affordable, then in general, the lots are going to be smaller. So that's why I think one of the things that did change, I believe, was a decrease to 4 acres. I think it started at 10.
Mhm.
And then just a density incentive for, you know, for making something more affordable.
Well, it's gonna be big enough for a septic field.
Well, that's the thing, you know, so here's the struggle that I run into in zoning is we throw numbers out arbitrarily when really what needs to dictate that is septic, sanitation, and those sorts of things, because maybe 8 units on 4 acres is reasonable, but maybe it should be 15 because of, you know, improvements in septic technology. So that's another thing that we're trying to run through. Now, what's nice about this is there's lots of examples of other towns doing this. And they've done it the projects, many of them have been very, very nice. Like Eastford has one that Eastford doesn't have townwide zoning, so it's a little bit different, but they've done it in great consideration of the surrounding area. It's a rural town. John Kaskowski, the town planner, has gotten me other examples that he's worked on in more rural towns like Connecticut. So it's not like we're gonna plop, you know, 1,000 units on 10 acres. It's in consideration of, you know, the surroundings too.
Well, my concern about taking out the set aside altogether if you do it on the basis of cost, well, that's a claim that any applicant can make. And so if you set that as your precedent, that's something you can consider. I think that opens the door for having a battle over this every time a subdivision comes in about whether or not it's affecting the cost. I don't see it as being a huge part of the budget, you know, especially since the land, if we took it, I have trouble imagining something that would meet our open space needs as part of a high density project. You know, but by definition, you know, you're making the maximum utilization of the available space, you know, and we want, you know, open space that's contiguous to other open space, or that's special or historic, or, you know, something like that. And so, I'd be interested to see how you even get a 15% part of a parcel, unless you consider it part of the landscape.
Sure.
As you said, but mostly I really would be concerned about the precedent of saying that, well, we can just forget about open space because we want to save them a few bucks.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm assuming these are fairly high budget development. You know, considering the cost of land and buildings, it's pretty big ticket, big bill. You know, so I would think this would not be a deal killer for any developer interested in coming in. But
Yeah, we don't know that yet, so one of the things that we're gonna do before anything goes to public hearing is to have at least one builder look at the draft and say, and John's working to create a pro forma for me too, to say these are the costs associated, because we don't know that.
Yeah.
We know that we've set a precedent in some cases, well, we don't know what precedent we've set yet, right? So we've had subdivisions where open space has been taking their fees in lieu. And I think the concern is that this is a little different, so I don't know that one size fits all, so we need to run those numbers and figure that out before we make a decision.
Bolton has a new regulation where on an individual building lot, just a normal building lot, you can put, well, the case my company's been involved in is there's a small, it's an acre lot, it's in the, comes to a commercial zone, it's a little different, but they're allowing them to build a 6-unit building with 6 one-bedroom units on this one single building lot. And the soils are good enough, everything supports it physically, and I think it's a pretty good plan, because it's basically, for Columbia, our typical building lot is 50,000 square feet, so it fits into that same envelope, so you could technically, on any lot, and you've had that similar regulation here, on any lot that's approved in Columbia, you could build a 6-unit. Whether it's, could be a retirement home, it could be something else, but.
Yep.
And that's what they've been doing. It's fairly new, because our client's the first one to actually use the regulation. But he's already sold the units. So-
Yeah, that's a regulation that was brought up to me in another time too, and that's something that we want to look at, because it's, I was bold in Columbia, very similar in some
The
instances.
beauty of it is that you could do it, I mean, any lot right now, that's an
Right.
approved building lot, you could do this on,
Right,
assuming you can meet the health code.
yeah, and that's where I want to go with all of this, is to have more data driven stuff, instead of let's throw a dart at the wall and make up numbers. It's like, well, what does the geography support? What is the technology support? And then what does that equal in units or density? And we've just not gone that direction. So I think we have an opportunity with this to do that, but also, where does this spider web into other areas of the regulations? And that's another big concern, which is why it's taking us some time. So like
It's gonna be tough.
yeah, because we allow accessory units attached to an existing house for, maybe an in-law apartment or something like that. We don't allow detached. So if you wanted to, and now there's no square footage minimums in the state of Connecticut for housing. So is it reasonable now as part of this to allow detached accessory units? Which I don't have a problem with. I think it's completely reasonable, but it goes to your point too, as far as if you have an acre lot or a 2-acre lot and the land can support that type of project, then is that something?
The big thing, if you look at Columbia Lake or any of the lakes around here, people put. Their 1/4-acre lots, and somehow they're able to get septics and wells and all that stuff on them. So if you plan ahead, you can do, I mean, most of the acreages are not based on feasibility, it's based on. How many houses do we want in Columbia? How many houses do we want in Lebanon? You have to have 2 acres to have a house in Lebanon. You don't need 2 acres to have a house in Lebanon. They got. Williams Pond there, or Lake Williams. There are all kinds of little houses on that. We do all the time, put new septic systems and they work fine. But yet, you gotta have 2 acres to build a house in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Columbia is fairly progressive, it's 50,000 square feet,
Yeah,
but still. On 50,000 square feet, you could put. 1 bedrooms if it's soils are good.
right. Yeah, and yeah, it's funny because part of what we're kind of working through as well is we get lost in reading the drafts and reading the regulations. And it's all theoretical, and it's like, well, we can't do this, we can't do that because of how it'll look or what, and it's like. That your point exactly, go to the lake, like there's density at the lake that we're trying to prohibit in the rest of the town through the regulations. And it's already there, it's just we're not acknowledging it, so part of it is just like. Acknowledging the reality of the situation that we're in now. And creating some regulations that are smart, based partly on that, but based on what would work feasibly economically for people too, so.
And the other, a lot of these regulations were written many years ago, and the
Yeah.
technology is improved. greatly.
Yeah, exactly.
We can get a lot more bang for your buck out of the system than you ever could.
I like the idea of a separate unit, though, like for an in-law or something. Because one of the things that Millie has said in dealing with the aging group, the Committee on Aging, is that there are just so many retired people that are gonna need something in town.
Yep.
And, if that was an opportunity, that would be one more.
Yeah, that one is, I want to do in conjunction with this, that's one of my goals, because I think it's completely reasonable, a lot of places do it. And it solves some problems for people if you can have, there's nothing wrong with having a detached accessory unit. So I think it fits well into this as part of the, people can choose what they want to do.
Well, the way it actually preserves land,
It does, yeah.
because that big problem in Lebanon, because their laws are so big, they chew up a lot of land. And get fewer houses.
Right.
In one sense, it's nice to get your 2-acre lot and you can do all this stuff. How many people want to go farm on their 2-acre lot? I think it's just so you end up wasting a hunk of land.
Yeah.
I have a question about the set aside, though. If the builder just buys a lot, and puts up the six units, there's no set aside. Because there's no subdivision involved. Is there a set aside on on the first cut? If someone buys a lot and just does one cut and divides it, there's no,
No,
there's no set aside for that
There's
either.
nothing, the first cut is basically what is like the old days, and that's why it's there.
Mhm.
To get subdivisions approved. They gave all the farmers this out, said, look, okay, you can cut off one lot for your son or daughter. So it just kind of made it more palatable. I think that was the logic, but now it's,
So
there aren't
the,
many of those left anyways.
so it's high density housing, that wouldn't count as a subdivision, so there'd be no set aside for it unless they. were-
Well, that's what's,
Well,
that's what's strange about it, because yes, there is a regulation currently.
Did you probably special exception or something?
Yeah, well, so I'm sure this is what happened, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure this is what happened. This was written for a specific project, the one that's in the regulations now. And as part of the negotiations of getting the regulations written, there was somebody wanted the 15% set aside, because there's no language about fee in lieu. It's just the land, it is different than a subdivision, but it is in the regulations that it's to get your application approved, you need to set aside 15%.
Hmm.
So it's a bit arbitrary too, it's like, I don't know why it's necessarily in there, but
Politics.
yes, that's what happens.
15% makes a lot of sense for buying woods, or, big
Right.
subdivisions, but it's one cutter, just as,
I mean, if you do a special exception, that gives you a lot more regulation and, like, there's some things that are just. If you meet the regulations, you're approved. There's something, a special exception where you follow the regulations, but then you have to prove that it meets whatever criteria it is. It's not just, you don't just automatically get it. So I assume that might be in that.
Yeah, and this is a special application, so it's not, it's the way I put it is it's giving someone the opportunity to ask to do it. And it still has to go through the zoning commission, which we will, on many projects, will ask for all kinds of things that are contingents on getting the application approved. It goes to a public hearing. So right now, the difference with something else is like we have site plans as well, which are more like objective criteria. You do A, B, C, you get a site plan, and it doesn't have to go through the public hearing piece. Whereas this is written and has been written as a special permit that the applicant would have to go through.
Well, 6 months, hopefully, it sounds.
like a lot of work you have to do.
It's like, it's a mountain, and this is just one little piece, like the regulations haven't been updated, as to your point, it's like technology's changed, needs have changed, and we've kind of piled stuff on top of stuff. So we're just one little piece of many that would.
I think one of the things that, I got involved in Killingly upgraded their regulations quite a few years ago now. One of the things they did, which I thought worked out really well for them, is that they actually sent out letters to all the different, some developers, engineers, surveyors. They just come and kind of put our 2 cents in before they approved the regulation. I can't remember, there was one regulation which they all thought was a great idea. It was like, it was gonna make a nightmare for everybody. So we all showed up and said, look, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And everybody said, oh, we didn't realize that. So it's about, so little things like that. Hopefully come up with a little good set of it. Maybe it's always gonna be, there always gonna be people complaining or don't like it, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested in the feedback from developers, because like you said, the regulation's completely useless if you can't.
But particularly engineers and surveyors are going to pull in there, because we actually look over the regulations and we're like the middle guy. We're talking to the developer, we're talking to zoning agents, we're trying to make sense between them. If you have that middle guy in part of it, yeah, helpful.
Yeah.
It's not as many of us around anymore, but
Maybe not last year, but.
yeah, when Killingly did, we had a room full of surveyors and engineers. But it worked. I mean, actually, there was some real good comments came out of it. It was a very positive meeting.
Yeah, that's a really good thing.
That's the only time I ever got involved in something like that, but it worked really well. But Killingly was great. I don't know how they didn't work on that area. They used to be very progressive that way. The lady, the planner who was in charge of all that was really good. Unfortunately, she passed away very young, but she ran a tight ship, and they had good regulations, but they were fair.
Yeah.
And you kind of knew, okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna get through this process.
Right.
And it works so very well.
Yeah, it's a good thing. And yeah, we need to make them listen, they're up for interpretation a lot. And
Yeah, and so.
it's kind of written that way, written into it, so.
Well, example, like if your rear lot regulations here in Columbia, it says you gotta have a rectangle 300 by 300. I had a client once that had a property that goes back 2,000 feet, and it was 295 feet wide. He said, all he wanted to do is put a house there and a lot way in the back on the 2,000 back there, and he couldn't do it. I think it's just,
Silly, it's completely silly.
and it's an arbitrary number, someone, I mean, oh, I'm gonna make it 300 by 300, okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And, you
No,
know,
I see, yeah, everything that this is what I've learned in my short time, is like, so much of it is just like, well, the number sounds good, so we'll do that. It's like, well, how did you come to that number? I don't know,
it's just
it
not
sounded good.
But there's no way he could have appealed sometimes?
you couldn't prove a hardship. I mean,
Just have to go through.
You could buy 5 feet of the native land.
I had one in Waterford, it was really good. He wanted to put which would have been a real lot. And the way the guy laid it out, the survey, the engineer and did it, he was 500 short of having enough frontage to do it, and we couldn't get around. He tried to buy some land from his neighbor, but of course, once you ask your neighbor, you want to buy something, they say, okay, how about $1 million? That was,
That's where we're at.
they were glad they did, and yeah, it turned out they were glad they didn't do it, so they're happy they have one. But it was just, sometimes it gets silly.
It's crazy. Trying to make it better.
Okay, thank you for that.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
All right, Route 66 property, and anything on that? Mark is out sick, so we don't have any updates from him. Nothing? All right, Anita Fay Ram Conservation, anything? I will say that with these rains, I went out with my camera, and it was amazing how much water was coming out of that marsh and going over the dam. There really was a mill at some point there, right? On one, maybe on the other side of the road.
Must have been something.
Yeah, but it was just amazing. I mean, it's like, you never think of water flowing. That it's just a marsh.
The very back of my property, I have a minor swamp, well, now I have a pond.
Hmm.
It's been like that the whole summer. It used to dry up, in August.
But you wonder with this global warming, whether it used to rain more. I mean, how did it support all the mills when it's only once in a great while you get rains like this?
But
They're
now,
really,
I was on NPR this morning, how we're gonna continue to get more and more rain as it heats up.
mm,
Because the atmosphere can hold more water, so when it rains, it rains.
mm. All right. Pine Street Parking. Anything?
The last conversation I had with Mark was, it's in the lawyer's hand.
Oh, yeah,
That could be a kiss of death.
yeah, it has been, yeah.
But from my point of view, we do have leverage, they do have to do something, and if they don't do something, then we can do something. The neighbor who's complaining has an issue that we can help him resolve, and he'll help us, but I don't know if that's how the conversation's going or not.
Yeah. Well, too bad.
I
no,
don't
so-
know if the lawyers are aware of the situation, and hopefully smarter minds will
Prevail.
prevail.
I think as a general rule of thumb, it's good to defend your boundaries. Because it's pretty clear from our understanding about where the boundaries are. We can negotiate, but we shouldn't capitulate entirely.
Well, Columbia has, where he is now occupying, Columbia has control of this, it's on town land. So if we really wanted to, we could bring a bulldozer and clean up his, tear up stone wall and put everything right up to his garage, where he has, right now, he has lots of room there. So, you know, we can come to some sort of, yeah, we won't bother you, just let us walk through. That seems like the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
You know,
That does.
people get to that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, I walk Rosewood Forest there all the time, and it's like, I never see anybody.
That's true.
You come across, I saw one hunter one day, and then Todd, his wife, were out there walking one day. And that's the last, couple of months, on the airline trails, you see some people, even that's not a crowd. So it's not like we're talking about a huge thing, but. People are people.
Yeah.
Okay, Hop River Trail Alliance. Ann, is that you or Tom? Ann? No, nothing?
Nothing.
Tom, are you on?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay,
Nothing.
all right, the next is you, 12 Town Airline Trail Alliance, anything on that?
Nope, nothing on that either.
All right. Hop River Preserve. Anything new? Shaking her head, no. Salmon River Watershed.
Well, they're what they need. Where they recount all their accomplishments for the year. There's gonna be some publication, I'll send that around when I get it. Columbia contributes $500 a year. The so-called core towns. Contribute 5,000 to 6,000. They want more money from everybody. I don't know, I was hoping Mark could comment,
Well, couldn't we as an open space committee, at least suggest and select that they put that, when I was a select, I used to try to put one in there. It's always been, unfortunately, traditionally, it's got a number, and they go through the, okay, they would keep it, I was selected for 12 years, I don't think the budget ever went up. 12 years, so.
Yeah, I remember, God, we were on this nearly 12 years ago. And it was only $500 then.
Yeah, so maybe that might be something, then coming up with this budget system, maybe we as an open space could suggest. And you could, write up something simple about whatever they're saying, other towns are. This is what other towns,
the percentage.
we're now getting behind.
so for example, after this appeal, I think it was East Haddam increased by $500. They go 500 to 1,000. This organization was hoping for. And this guy mentioned that they went up 500 voluntarily. No one's holding a gun.
I think it's all,
But if we went up $100, that's one.
So,
Paul, if I could speak to that. I'm working on budget now for conservation. Open space does not have a budget. So because I chair both, I chuck anything open space into conservation's budget. So I think we should bring that up as soon as possible, because the budgets are getting pretty well gelled in the beginning of January. So what is
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
get some water, Ann, maybe. Some water?
I just need a recommendation for how much to increase it.
1,000? I mean, increase it 5, make it 1,000?
Well, what are they asking for? Are they asking for a specific amount? Salmon River?
was recommended for the core towns, 500 to 1,000. And again, Mark attended a meeting, and Chris, I'll follow up on this, talking to him. He attended a meeting of the state or DEP, and it included Salmon River Partnership. And a lot of this was discussed. In fact, they complimented Mark Walters for his participation as a town official, as opposed to peons,
Yeah.
So Mark should be up on these details. He may have an idea, he may have already thought it would be
Unfortunately,
too.
not here
But
today.
if we were to say if I were to just throw it out there, 500 to 1,000, this group would love that.
Hmm.
Now, okay, so I'd like to be able to say what they're planning to do. She's coming up with an action plan, this Pat Young who runs this thing. So I'd be able, once that list is out, I could say, here's what they're planning to do. And here's what they need the money for. They had,
Could be good.
go ahead, Dan.
I will email Mark Walter and ask him to add something to this.
Great.
Of course, we can recommend, but the Board of Select or feedback will say, we can't edit that was and it will say, okay, about 500. You know, shoot for the moon. I mean, shoot for the stars and settle for the moon.
So that $500 is in the conservation budget. Pay that in the conservation budget?
It may be, but it might not so be in the Board of Selectmen's budget. They make contributions like to AHM and Salmon River may be in that category.
It is, I guess that's something familiar. Yeah.
I think that's all.
I'll check too as to where it is.
Well, Mark,
And as you say, Mark is very deep into Salmon River watershed because he lives in East Hampton. I mean, where does he live? East Hampton. And so he will know. But I will bring it right up to him.
Okay, Tom, anything on the Friends? Yo, Tom.
He appears to be gone.
Yeah, okay.
The friends have not met in a month or two, so I suspect no. What we did do before I went down, Tom and I met with Mark Walter and Beth Lunt, the DPW director, and Deb Fisk, the rec director. And we tried to, the purpose of the meeting was to establish essentially who's on first and where do the budget things go? Because we ask for like a gate or something on an open space. And we don't have a budget. So it's supposed to come out of DPW, but nobody told DPW to put that in their budget. So we tried to straighten out how we can coordinate not only budget, but work and things like that. So,
Feel you made any progress? Because this is really a big problem in town.
it's a huge problem. So I said, oh, well, I'll give you a wish list. So I made up this wish list of all the things that open space and conservation needed. And I sent it to Mark Walter. And it said, here, you decide whose budget this goes into. And I do believe he's working on that. So The friends group kind of fall in this no man's land. Because they're not town, but they do for the town. And we also are trying to get, and we're trying to get somebody to advertise and organize a trails group. Some of you remember the trails group that Bob Elkins chaired, and that was under conservation. Well, that kind of fell apart when Bob left. And we're trying to get it organized. But the old members are too old now. And we're not digging ditches and sawing trees. So they need new volunteers. So that's one thing. Friends group was trying to work with Deb Scott. Could she, because she has media, organize that and then just sign up these thousands of volunteers who will of course say, yes, I want to go work on trails. And then Friends group will organize them.
Do you think that Public Works was receptive to trying to organize requests?
Requests for budget?
Well, for work, I mean, it just seems like the gates, like they'll go out and they'll meet out at the site and they'll talk about the gates and there are no gates.
Well, that was for two reasons. First of all, nobody put it in the budget. And we said, we want these right now. And you have to plan your projects a year ahead. So the money wasn't there. And the other reason was she had Beth Lutz had a very full plate with storm drains and plowing snow and all the other stuff. It wasn't like they're sitting around in their new facility twiddling their thumbs, you know. And so she put it on her list and said, well, when you budget it, let me know and I'll move it up the list. So that's why it didn't get done. But there's also no communication back to the Friends group to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that right now. Put it in a budget next year. So it's all of those problems, scheduling, budget, and communications.
Okay. New business, election of officers. We really have to do that, Ann? Is that up? Is this the time to do that?
We never do that. And I just thought, we have new members and, who knows, maybe they don't want me as chairman. But I thought I would put it on there because all the other committees like planning and zoning had election of officers and especially if they had new membership. And I'd be happy to continue. But if there's anybody else who wants to fight me for it, go for it.
What other office?
But I've got to tell you, Chris, you cannot get out of the secretary.
One job.
Yeah.
So there's chairman and secretary, anything else?
And vice chairman. You, Paul.
You're
Okay,
vice chairman, aren't you?
okay.
I nominate Paul as vice chairman. All in favor?
All right, so should we nominate Ann again?
I'll nominate Aaron for
It's your
chair.
vote, great. I'll second
Okay, any discussion? No discussion, all right. Show of hands, Ann to be our chairman. Continue to be our chairman. All right, unanimously passed, you have no choice.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence.
nobody else wants it, Ann.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that too. You wait until whatever I've got here kills me.
Okay,
And
so
it's you, Paul.
have we discussed budget? Ann,
What?
have we discussed budget?
Yeah, I think so. Unless anybody else says more.
No, okay. All right, so you're actually absorbing the budget we don't have into conservation.
Well, yes, but don't put that in the minutes.
No.
For instance, I budget money for conferences and postage and stuff like that. So when there's a good conference like CACUEC or CLCC, I just say, oh, just tell them it's for conservation. And there it is, there's the money. But open space, they do not want us to have real money. Because, I mean, we actually have an open space account, which is dedicated. It has to be used only for open space. But there's also, and we have no control over it.
You know, there's been a turnover in FIPAC. That's pretty significant.
Well, I know Bernie,
We-
he's not Bernie, he's
Asking,
not there. But who is chairman?
what I'm wondering is, should we go back to asking for an annual contribution to open space? I mean, which we tried for years and failed.
So one question though, so Ann mentioned and this is my assumption too, open space has an account with money in it, correct?
Well, it's very little. I think it was left over. We had an agreement to buy a property. I think it was the Lucarelli,
Yes,
and money was appropriated. And then the three brothers had a falling out, the Lucarellis, and we didn't purchase that property. So that money stayed in an account, but the town has never given us.
But does that money include fees in lieu and stuff like that that's come from
I
somebody?
guess it would if,
Yeah.
yeah.
yes, it has been, except for that one input from the town for Lucarelli, which we did not spend. The only source of income has been fee in lieu.
So how much is in that account now?
I don't know, they never tell me. It's a well-kept secret. I mean, if you ask, they'll tell you. But we have used it for things like,
There's a lot left, because didn't we buy
The Robinson piece.
the Robinson? Yeah,
yes,
with that.
we bought the Robinson piece, we bought the Graham open space piece, in Lyman Woods. We bought that. And we also paid for appraisals and surveys and things like that from there. A lot of times it comes out of there. There's also, and this is a dedicated interest-bearing account. So it just sits there, it doesn't go away at the end of the budget year. But there's another account that the town keeps. And this one is set up by Jonathan. Jonathan and Ernie put their heads together on this. And that's where they dump money that they're going to spend for land acquisition. So when we bought George Murphy's sand lot, remember that? We did. We bought a great deal of land adjacent to the dump for sand. And that money came out of that account. And it is not interest bearing to my knowledge. And the town has complete control over it. So
Well, what I'm wondering is
so
whether,
it's confusing when you say how much is in the open space account. Early will sometimes give you one or the other. And I say, no. The one that's dedicated.
I'm wondering if it's time to go back to 5-pack and ask for an annual contribution.
No, we don't ask them, we ask the board of selectmen.
I'm sorry?
You ask the board of selectmen to put it in their budget, and then they try to get buyback.
Oh, okay, well.
Because 5-pack doesn't make budgets, they review.
Oh, I see, right, you're right, okay.
Yeah.
So
That's-
should we make it?
We're an advisory committee. We are not a commission. Conservation is a commission. That's why I keep my dirty little fingers in conservation. For that reason, because the Conservation Commission has more power.
Yeah, but Ann, they're not gonna give conservation $200,000 a year to buy land. That's us. So should we go back to the selectmen now that there's been a?
You will not give it to us. The selectmen would have an open space account
Right.
if they chose. And I do not think that they will at this point. You will have to have a turnover. Paul, you will have to run for selectman.
Hmm.
Yeah, there might be a tough budget here for that, especially if
It's gonna be a very
the
tough
school
budget.
project gets approved.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be hard.
Mill right there and,
Yeah, I think
Plus, I think you've got to have a good reason. You've got to say, try this out. If you went there to the selectmen and said, why don't you put $250,000 away every year and say, for what? And you have that really good answer for that.
Well, our argument had always been that if something suddenly came up, that we would have the funds for it. You know, if somebody dies and the heirs say, we want to get rid of this now. We would have the opportunity if we had an account.
Yeah. And they're gonna say, we're gonna float a bond for $7 million on the school, and you want $250,000 just in case. Come on, that will not fly. You have to say, we have our sights on this property, we would like to have some money to negotiate for this property. You might get somewhere that way, but just in case something comes up, like you would have to have somebody who has expressed an interest, like, I don't know, or you could say, well, we want Silverstein, or something like that.
Yeah, that's my thought.
And it's no use without contributions, because they come back and go, oh, man.
Just in defense of the town, I mean, in the last few years, as things have come up, we have been able to get the money to purchase them.
Yeah,
Mm.
but the general fund has been sold,
And,
yeah.
yeah, but so. I think, okay, Ann's talked, we'll use the Silverstein pieces, if not, that suddenly came up, and it's a key piece to finishing out. First of all, we probably were working with Trust for Public Land, we might be able to get state money and stuff, but that would be a case where all of a sudden something important's come up and everybody's kind of committed to expanding Ronald Pond State Park. You might be able to convince the board of selectmen to actually, at least, but, you know, come up with, because the board has been very supportive.
Yeah, they always have done money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now at this point, we are committed to expanding the park to some degree. Again, we got a huge budget and it just came up now, so who knows, but
Mm.
I tend to, having been on that board, I don't think that they're gonna set aside a ton of money just in case.
Yeah, I don't think so, yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't mean we'll be able to get open space if something happens either.
Mm.
We just have to do a good sales job.
Mm. Okay. Well, we had one more thing on the agenda, but maybe I'll postpone that to next meeting because Ann has written educate, inform strategies for converting your land. I was not here. I had eye surgery last meeting, but I had put together a list of properties that were potentially candidates for conservation. But there is no directive, there are no guidelines for people at this point on what to do if they're considering that. And so we're gonna write a little memorandum, a document, and then present that. I think we'll do that before the next meeting. And then we'll present that to the meeting and discuss it at that point. But basically, it's what are my options if I'm thinking about conserving property that I own? This actually, I will tell you that this came up. As you know, I swim every morning very early at Columbia Lake. And another couple start coming in swimming, and Millie and I, who does gardening when I'm swimming, we started talking with these people, this couple. And the woman said that she and her brother own 35 acres in town that they wanted to conserve. They did not want it developed. They did not want it to sell it to somebody. They wanted to somehow conserve it. She didn't have a clue or the first idea of who to talk to or what to do. So I thought that really set me thinking, and there are a lot of other properties that are on the verge of potentially being conserved. That if we put together a list of who to contact, what the different means are for conserving your land, you know, the different avenues, and just having this to distribute. And so I think we'll work on it this month and then talk about it next month.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else?
You have 1 minute left.
Oh, anything else? All right. Motion to adjourn. First, second, all in favor of adjourning? That's it. Thank you for coming.
Better in? Yeah.
Take care, Aaron.
And how do we shut this down? Recording?
Lead.